What, maybe? You got it? All right. Good morning, guys. Everybody online, good morning. I'm going to do my best to get through this. So, we're still in John. Last week, we the lesson was on the lady at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well. It was, I guess, the first of Jesus' miraculous signs in John. In between last week and this week, he was confronted by a government official in Galilee whose son was sick. Through that, there was another miraculous sign performed by Jesus, and that, he healed that young man. His fever left. He was made well. So today we come to the third sign in John, and it is where he goes back to Jerusalem, and he comes in to this area where the pool of Bethesda, might have said this wrong, but it's about a disabled man where he sees there, and he heals this man. So I'm going to just start by reading the scripture. I know I'm not going to get all this right. I'm going to miss something. I studied hard on it. There's an awesome message in it. I just don't know if I can get it through. So I'm going to do my best. But I'm going to read the scripture. I'm not sure I'll get everything on every verse that I need to, but I'm going to try. Here we go. John chapter 5, verse 1. It says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem, by the sheep market, a pool which is called, in Hebrew tongue, Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool in the troubled water. Whosoever then first, after the troubling of the water, stepped in, was made whole, and whosoever of whatsoever disease he had. And a certain man was there, which had an infirmity for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying, and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. Jesus said unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And immediately the man was made whole, and he took his bed and walked. And on the same day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, It is the Sabbath day, it is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. He answers them, It is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. He answers them, He that made me whole, the same said unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. And then asked they to him, What man is that which said unto thee, Take up thy bed and walk? And he that was healed wist not who it was, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, and a multitude being in that place. Afterward Jesus findeth him in the temple, and said unto him, Behold, thou art made whole, sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus which had made him whole, and therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. All right. I'm not a good speaker. I cannot talk well without crying for some reason. I don't understand. But I'm going to do my best. I tried to make notes, and I listened to Pastor Adrian Rogers. I love to hear him talk. He had a whole different take on it than what the teacher's book here really had. So I'm going to try to use both of them. If I could just play his sermon, we would all sit here and listen to that because it was amazing. Loved it. I've listened to it probably 5 or 6 times this week. In the teacher's book, there's one thing that stuck out with me. The word compassion is used 23 times in the text right here, in the teaching. 23, and it stuck out with me, the word compassion. 23 times. Jesus on the cross showed compassion for us. He's showing compassion here. I don't get this right. The healing of this man. This whole thing, in my opinion, and this is what I've tried to study on, this whole story is not really about the physical healing of this man. It wasn't about making him be able to walk. The fact of 38 years of being paralyzed. Some of y'all know my situation. Y'all know my dad, right? Daddy's been paralyzed for 29 years. I've dreamed of him getting back up to walk. I've literally had these dreams, night after night sometimes. 29 years he'd been paralyzed. He was a strong man. He worked every day. He did his thing, and for 29 years he's not been able to get up and walk. I can't imagine. This man, they found him. Jesus, so there was I got to get this right. And if I start talking, maybe I'll get it all right like I should. But when Jesus got to this pool, it was full of people that were sick. Some were paralyzed, some were blind, some were diseases. It was full of people. But he chose this one man out of everybody to heal. And he could have healed every single one of them. And this is where I'm trying to make sure I'm not a preacher, and I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to say something wrong, but he could have healed every single one of them. But he chose one. He didn't. Jesus wasn't the healer. He was a teacher, right? He could heal, but he did this to teach a lesson that it's. We all know it, and I'm speaking to myself. I'm really. This is really speaking to me. Like we know what we should do every day, right? We just get caught up in the world. We get busy. We forget sometimes to be compassionate. I'm busy. I get laser focused on something, and I get kind of hard-nosed, hardcore. This is what I got to do, and I forget to be compassionate. When something's in front of you, and you need to just slow down and say, hey, I need to help here. I need to do this, and I don't. Anyway, I'm going to try. I tried to make some notes. This is chicken scratch, but I'm going to try to. So, y'all bear with me. There's going to be some silence because I got to read through one of them I've got here. Kevin, appreciate the glasses, bud. I appreciate. That's good. Yeah, so it talks. I'm gonna try the lesson. The teacher's edition here goes literally almost word for word. It gives description of nearby every word in the text, and I don't have the time or the sense to read every bit of it. But Jesus saw him there out of everybody. He didn't just by chance pick this guy. For some reason, he knew it won't. Jesus don't do nothing just by a whim. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He knew to pick this guy. I'm just going to read some stuff I've highlighted. It says, nothing about him commanded Jesus' favor. Solely based on his purpose and compassion, Jesus approached this man. This man didn't know about Jesus, right? He didn't know who Jesus was. He didn't have a clue who he was at that time. Jesus had just started performing these miracles. But Jesus, in his divine omniscience, he knew exactly how long the man had been disabled and how many times he had come to this pool. That was something else I knew I was going to miss. So he come to this pool, who knows how long, but somebody had to get him there. His family or somebody had to get him there. And I don't know if he stayed there every day or if he come back and forth every day. I don't know. But somebody had to get him there. And then when the water got stirred, it says he tried to get to the pool, but he couldn't get there fast enough. So he was putting forth the effort to be healed. I got too many papers here. Make sure I got my papers. This thing ain't big enough. I need a good cabinet guy to build a bigger one. So Jesus asked him, wilt thou be made whole? He knew the answer to that, right? He knew he wanted to be healed. He knew he wanted to walk. He said, wilt thou? He didn't say, you will be made whole. He asked him. This is where I'm going to mess up. Because Adrian Rogers had the sermon, and it was so awesome. We all have to want Jesus. Jesus is not going to force himself on us, right? It's our will. Sharon, I can't even look out there because you know this stuff. You know this Bible better than probably any of us sitting here. So it's tough to. I told Shannon she couldn't even sit in on this to start off with. When I found out I had to do this, so you can't sit here and listen to me because I can't look out. She studies so hard, but. Jesus did something that they could see so that they would understand and believe in something they could not see, right? The fact of healing him to walk wasn't his purpose in this. It was so they would believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of God. That was his thing in performing all these miraculous signs throughout. That physical healing of being able to walk, that's a temporary healing. But the spiritual healing that he was trying to perceive there, that's for eternity. That's the healing when it says, wilt thou be made whole? That made whole meaning your change, the change in yourself, the belief in Jesus. That be made whole. It won't hold as he could walk again. The fact that Daddy walking again, he's going to walk one day. He's going to be made whole. My daddy knows Jesus way better than he ever did. Like, I ask myself a lot being his son, why 29 years has Daddy got to be like this? I question that all the time. But I see in him, he's never mad. He's always happy. It's a challenge for Mama, a true challenge for Mom to look after him all the time. But when you see him, yeah, he's paralyzed. He can't walk. He can't even get up and go for himself. But that man is never mad. He's never angry about it. He's always happy. He's always got a smile on his face. He knows Jesus. So the physical healing versus the spiritual healing, out of that, he is spiritually healed. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. He knows Jesus, and that physical healing is temporary, but the spiritual healing is for eternity. The one thing I read, Jesus is God's answer for man's disability. So his 38-year disability of not being able to walk is one thing, but wilt thou be made whole? He asked him. We all have a will to choose to walk up this aisle and give your life to Christ. We all have that choice. Adrian Rogers, in his sermon, he made a statement that, if I got to say it right, it stuck out. No, God will not take an angel to walk you up this aisle. There's not enough angels to make you go up that aisle. You have to choose that yourself. But there ain't enough of hell's angels to keep you from walking up that aisle if you choose to. It's a choice. Like, we all have that choice to be disabled or not. It's God is willing and wanting us to follow him all the time. I know I'm going to miss something. The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, somebody else gets in front of me every time. So he's trying. And Jesus said unto him, Rise and take up thy bed and walk. He didn't say, and I've heard this, and I've listened to this sermon so many times I can't even get it right, but Adrian mentioned that he didn't say walk and grab your bed. He said to rise and take up your bed. Then walk. So I won't get that correct as I should, but we have to study, we have to live it every day. Not just every now and then. And I'm talking to myself. It's easy we know it, but to actually walk it, right? We say it. We got walk the walk, talk the talk, walk the walk. You hear that? So I get busy every week. I mean, between work, at home, kids' ball games, and I catch myself. This has bothered me this week because I catch myself not really walking the walk sometimes. Having to study for this lesson showed me that, hey, I need to keep my head in the book. I'm bad. My Bible will come home from church on a Sunday, and I'll lay it on the end table beside my couch. And a lot of times I won't open it up. And it ain't because I don't want to open it up or because I'm just against opening it up. I'm busy. Everybody's busy. And, man, if you get asked to do this one Sunday, don't say no. Don't say no. Take the challenge to do it because it'll help. It'll make you get back in the Word. It really will. I don't want to teach every Sunday because I can't. Y'all might not ask me to do this again after today. But I got off track as usual. All right. Adrian, in his sermon, when it asked him, "Wilt thou be made whole?" he broke this thing down into three categories right here, or three specifics that we needed to think. He said one is to validate our weakness. We need to acknowledge our weakness, right? Whatever that may be. We need to not physical weakness. I'm talking about like spiritual weakness. We need to validate it. We must validate or admit our weakness. He said the man was disabled for 38 years. It may actually represent it's representing his spiritual paralyzation, not the fact that he couldn't walk. That was obvious, but his spiritual paralyzation. All right, so he referenced a verse here. I tried to screenshot some stuff this morning. Romans chapter 5, if I can find it. I'm not even good with this phone. Romans chapter 5, verses 8 through 10 says, "But God commendeth us his love toward us, in that while we are yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from the wrath through him." So we got to validate, we got to admit our weaknesses. His primary source of his weakness was his sin. It wasn't the fact of necessarily being able to walk. Our sin is our weakness. That's the whole thing. It wasn't the fact that he couldn't walk or he was paralyzed. He was spiritually paralyzed. The second thing was to activate your will. He says, "Wilt thou be made whole?" He didn't say you will be made whole. He asked a question. Jesus asked the question. He didn't command that. He asked the question to the man. Wilt thou be made whole? He says, do we wish to be made whole? We must decide to accept Christ. He will not force us to accept him. That's how I believe. It's our free will. He doesn't want us to spend eternity in hell. He wants us to follow him. He wants us to choose him, believe in him, share him with others. That's one of my weaknesses. I don't share him. I work in a maintenance environment. Unfortunately, I'm not around true believers every day, all day. It's tough. It's tough sometimes. I'm gonna admit it's tough sometimes. For one, I catch myself more. Hey, you got to be an example somehow. And I fall short of that, but I really try to be some kind of example because I'm not around believers. All of them aren't believers every day. And man, it's tough. It is tough. So we got to be an example. If we're following him, we believe in him, it's got to show in our lives. Some people are better at it than others. I fail at it quite often. And as parents, we got to show it to our kids. Holy moly, I had to help Kel with some geometry last night. Oh my gosh, some online geometry. I ain't for sure didn't say a few words that I shouldn't have said in the middle of trying to help him study with this geometry. But I'm being, Haley, you said make a joke, so I'm trying to be funny a little bit, but that geometry was whooping my butt. And I got real frustrated with it. But you got to be an example in front of our kids, right? I mean, man, I felt this too quite often. Being a parent is a huge responsibility, and our kids don't need to rely on the school system or anybody to know who Jesus is. They should see it through mom and daddy. They should see it through mom and daddy. And wherever they can find it is great, but primarily their number one source should be looking at mom and dad to see Jesus. That is our responsibility. So it was to validate our weakness, activate our will, and this third one was to initiate our walk. I got to find this verse right here. I wrote it down and now I can't remember why I wrote it down. John chapter 20, 30, 31. This writing's way too small. John chapter 20, 30 and 31, it says, the disciples saw Jesus do many other miraculous signs in addition to the ones recorded in this book. But these are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, that by believing in him you will have life by the power of his name. Like, these miracles that he was performing there's many more to come, but the three that we've seen, not the Samaritan woman at the well, the government's official son, and now this disabled man, these didn't happen to perform an actual physical healing. Jesus did this so that they would know who he was. They would know he's the Son of God. He's come to this earth to die for us. And them, like the ones that didn't even believe him at that moment. So that was the whole purpose. It wasn't to actually make this man walk again. My notes are so terrible. He answered them, he that made me whole. So, all right, so he took up his bed and walked. Once he did this, Jesus kind of got gone. Like he kind of vanished into the crowd. It wasn't like Jesus stayed around. I don't know the whole reason and why, but he made in the sermon and made mention that if he'd have stayed around, everybody that saw that healing would have just bombarded him, right? As a healer. That wasn't why he was there. There again, he did this spiritual weakness. It was the main purpose. It wasn't the fact of his legs didn't work. And if he'd have stayed there, everybody would have come to him as a healer. He come as a teacher. And it happened, so this healing was also on the Sabbath. Back then they couldn't do anything. The fact of picking up his bed and walking, that was an act of work, like just literally picking it up. That was against what they could do back then. And these religious leaders, they immediately used that against Jesus, that he did this on a Sunday. And I know I'm getting ahead and behind and I ain't going in order like I should, but that was the beginning of them wanting to crucify Jesus right then. He performed that work on a Sunday, and from that point forward, he was destined right then. He was destined to die on the cross anyway, but right then, them religious leaders, they started persecuting him, looking for him, going to hunt him down. So Jesus knew that. So he vanished into the crowd, for one, so everybody wouldn't bombard him, to just heal every little problem they had, right? He vanished in the crowd. Then he come back and found a man, but he found a man in the temple. So the man didn't get healed and walk back home. The man got healed and went to church. I thought that was kind of, definitely worth mentioning. Afterwards, Jesus findeth him in the temple, and said unto him, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. This last part of this thing is tough for Mark. So we accept Christ. We do a profession of faith. I want to be saved. I want to believe in Jesus. I want to follow Jesus. At that moment, it is amazing. That's an amazing transformation. You feel it. You know it. You've just done it. For Mark, as time progresses, we'll go back to where I was at. I'm busy. Life's busy. We're doing things, and you kind of fall off track. You don't read the Bible like you should. You don't spend as much time in His Word. You're not doing a bad thing, but you just ain't where you were at that transformation time of accepting Jesus at that moment. So it says, Behold, thou art made whole. He has just been forgiven. He knows that this is Jesus. He realizes, thou art made whole, but sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. Sin was his 38 years of disability. He's just been made whole. Sin no more. I mean, we're not going to be perfect, right? We're going to sin, but man, I catch myself doing some stuff or saying some stuff or thinking some stuff. I'm like, wow, that ain't where we need to be. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. That's That's what Jesus told him. So y'all just think on that. I don't even know how to. Anybody got any comments? I'm sitting up here rambling. Anybody got anything to say on that? Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. Verse 15 says, the man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus which had made him whole. And therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. I don't know. My knowledge of the Bible is not as good as it should be. I don't read as much as I should, but man, they from that, like I said, from that point forward, them leaders sought him to get rid of him, and he kept performing some more miracles. I hadn't read that far ahead. I've read a little bit, but he kept performing these miracles. He wanted everybody to know that he was the Son of God. And it was real. He was there. And that was the whole purpose of what he was doing. So, I had a couple more verses. I know I'm running a little short, maybe. I'm going to read some of these verses that I took pictures of, if you don't mind. Revelation chapter 22, verse 17. It says, and the Spirit and the bride say, come, and let him that heareth say. Maybe that ain't right. The last part of that verse says, and whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. Whosoever will. It goes back to where he asked him, wilt thou be made whole? He didn't say you will be made whole. He asked that man. Whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. The last verse in the last part that I wrote down was, by grace, through faith, he got up and walked. Not by doing good works, but unto God's works. So Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8, 9, and 10, I believe it is. It reads, for by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in him. We're all going to sin. We need to ask forgiveness for that every day. Every time you speak to him, ask for forgiveness. Try to be representation as best you can in every situation, every circumstance you're in. And I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to myself. That disability of sin, when I think of it, I think of the disability of sin. Like this, it was just overwhelming. Yes, the man had a physical disability, but that disability of sin, to get that burden off of him and to believe in Christ, from rise up and take the bed and walk. I mean, can you imagine what that looked like, what he felt like? To have that burden lifted off of him, like believing in Jesus. But he told him, sin no more, lest the worst thing come unto thee. When we turn our life over to him, just don't read. Read. I guess that's the thing. I'm talking to myself. I don't read enough. I got to stay in the Word. We can't follow Him without being in this Word. I'm talking to me. I'm not where I need to be because I don't read enough. This opportunity to get up here this morning has showed me I got to read more. I sit back there and I hear it, but man, until you read it and study it, there's so much more there. We got to do it. I thank y'all for letting me mumble through this morning. I know I didn't cover everything like I should have, but thank y'all for listening to me. Anybody got anything to add, please? Anything?
I can read something out of the Bible, and I have to read it 4 or 5 times to even get one little small thing out of it. I'm about as country and dumb as they come, and you can just, you got to just spell it out for me. I mean, I got 3 Bibles at the house that's study Bible, and I read a chapter out of each one of them and get something different out of every one of them.
I'm with you. Do you know how many versions of this I've read this week? I mean, I've read every. Woo! I've read I don't know how many versions of this thing, and I've still got up here and forgot half of what I was going to say. I know I have, and I'll get back home and I'll be like, I didn't say this, and this was important, and I did not remember to say it. I know that's going to happen. It's very tough standing up here, but man, thank you for letting me have the chance to do it. If nothing else, it showed me that whatever next week's lesson is, I need to read it and read it. So Shannon will do that every week. I forgot what afternoon it was, but I'd come in and I'd been working in the shop and come in and I turn on the TV and I look over there and she's got the Bible study out, and that's Mark. I fail tremendously. I got to do better at that, right? Anyway, I love y'all. Y'all all friends. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to add, my translation's a little different because I have the dumbed down version is what I call it. Country girl version.
I need it.
It says, do not sin anymore so that something worse doesn't happen to you. And I took that as, he's compassionate, yeah, but he don't want you to take advantage of it. He said, I did this for you. Now don't start sinning again because something else can happen to you too. And he will be there every time, but it doesn't mean that we should take advantage of it.
Right.
So he's compassionate, but he's also serious.
Yes.
He doesn't take advantage of the stuff he does.
Yes. That's and that's where I fail. We just get busy and get off track. And Sunday morning, Sunday school, love it. Gets me back on track. For anyone that stands up here, thank you for putting in the effort to do this every morning. I appreciate it. Shane, will you close us in prayer, please?